welcome to Newsclick. The UFA statement issued recently by India and Pakistan was seen as the beginning of an improved relationship between the two countries. However, the cancellation of talks this week between the NSAs of the two countries, primarily due to disagreement on what issues to discuss during the talks, has meant again no headway as far as the peace talks are concerned. To discuss the cancellation of these talks between India and Pakistan, we're joined by Seema Mustafa, a journalist with The Citizen, and someone who's covered the India-Pakistan issue extensively. Thanks, Seema, for joining us today. Now, do you believe that the NSA-level talks would have actually accomplished anything substantial? It appears to a great extent as though the talks were merely a PR exercise for both countries to exercise these dossiers of information on these supposed terrorists that each one is harboring. How will the cancellation of talks actually change or impact the relationship that we currently have with Pakistan?
See, once when they agreed in UFA that they're going to talk, the two prime ministers, and it was at the highest level of Narendra Modi and Nawaz Sharif, and after that, you expected that there will be a lot of work done to make the NSA level talks fruitful. It was very clear even before the cancellation that there was no back channel established. And all the problems that the two countries have are usually sorted out in back channels and then they're brought in. So, you know, we had started saying that despite all the firefighting and stabbing each other and the accusations and the hurling of accusations, they had not really done anything to make these talks fruitful. So, a lot of people were saying, why are you going ahead with them anyway?
Now, as you mentioned, the cancellation of these talks has come amidst a lot of chest-thumping accusations of backstabbing from both sides and so on. Now, as you point out, the two heads of state had actually agreed on talks going forward. So what has actually changed so as to render these talks impossible? I mean, there is a line being peddled by part of our media that the Pakistani army never bought into these talks, which is why they were doomed to fail from the very beginning. Do you think that is a correct analysis?
No, I don't think it's just the army. I think it was both sides. You know, it's always both sides and we always blaming the other. But at UFA, when the statement was drafted by the two foreign secretaries, I think either Nawaz Sharif or his foreign secretary or both were sleeping, because that joint statement made it very clear that the NSAs would meet on terrorism. There was no mention in that entire statement about Kashmir. While there was a larger mention about outstanding issues, but the specific talks, I mean, Sushma Swaraj, our minister, was fairly right on that, you know, the NSA talks were on terrorism, so where's Kashmir come in? So when Nawaz Sharif went back, the army, the vested interests, and everybody went crazy saying that you've given in on terrorism, but where is Kashmir? And how can you have NSA level talks after such a long time without Kashmir? And the noises on Kashmir were started being made right from that time. Now, if we had back channel, you could have saved it. You could have, you know, both sides could have started saying, well, okay, first round on terrorism, second round on other issues, or brought in Kashmir, or told them, okay, lower it, we'll bring it. You know, there are whole ways of diplomatic ways. So why do you think these
back channel talks never actually got
Because
underway?
I don't think we were interested.
In the talks in the first place?
I don't think we were interested. I don't think that maybe either side was not interested. But I can't say about Pakistan, we can say about India. We had Bihar elections coming in. For us, the talks only had a meaning if they became a stage for talking on terrorism. Right. For us, the talks had no meaning if they became a stage which went against the BJP government's constituency.
So, given all that, then how do you look at the way the Indian government has been dealing with the entire Harriet issue, or the issue of the separatists?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, because they've made it very clear that they don't want the Pakistanis to meet with them, despite the fact that they've been supposedly doing this for many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, this is that usual small little constituency in the establishment, which has always been there, right, from the time when the talks were established, whether it was Vajpayee or whether it was Manmohan Singh or before that Gujral, which has always advocated this very, very hard line. And that establishment, that really comes out of the intelligence agencies, because obviously they're firefighting all the time and they don't want dialogue. The prime ministers before have been very pragmatic. They've been very clear that, okay, you know, if they're meeting other Indians, they're also meeting the Hurriyat. You know, if you give them a special status, then you're trying to say that there's somebody else. So, I mean, good politics itself would indicate that you're having a reception, you're calling 5,000 people, call them also. And I think the tragedy of this whole thing has been, insofar as politics in the Indian government is concerned, that you have revived Pakistan in Kashmir, whereas the Kashmiris were really not at all looking at Pakistan. If they were alienated from New Delhi, they were equally alienated, the younger generation, from Islamabad, which was after years. And the Hurriyat had, because of that, become sort of irrelevant.
Irrelevant, yes. They had been marginalized over the last so many years. So, but what do you therefore make of the Modi government's stance on Pakistan as a whole? If you were to look at the last year of his prime ministership, starting off with the invitation to Nawaz Sharif, they've met a few times at various international events, and now these talks, which, as you say, look like they were never supposed to get underway really. What do you make of the Modi government's relationship?
I think the Modi government...
do they know what they're doing?
Yes, in fact, I'm not one of those who thinks that they don't know what they're doing. I think they're coming out of the same constituency which they had before, which is Pakistan, Indian Muslim, Kashmir, terrorism, anti-national. So all this thread that they keep weaving, and they weave in the domestic violence and communal violence. So it's all the time this linkages that they make. So for them, Pakistan policy feeds into these linkages. So how can you have peace when you have to say that Pakistan is your enemy, and then you have to say that the Indian Muslim is connected with Pakistan, and you have to say that every single Kashmiri is a terrorist because of his links or his independent stand. So if you've taken these extreme positions about Indian citizens, then you're obviously going to take, for you, peace doesn't really work as a doctrine. But conflict and war does.
That is incredibly worrying then from a long-term perspective.
Well, it is because, you know, by this cancellation and by this kind of an attitude, if it doesn't change, and if the diplomacy sort of, you know, now the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India, you know, so that's itself a big thing to have happened, and he should realize his responsibility towards India. But if that doesn't really work, then obviously it's very worrying, because you're pushing the Kashmiris with their back against the wall again, and you're making them feel as if they're constricted and confined. And you've also now given Pakistan a handle, and the Pakistan military a handle, to rev up Kashmir again in all possible ways. You see, the talks were constantly, had been able to strengthen the civilian side in Pakistan, and they had been able to then tell the military that, you know, stay out of this. But rather than that, now we are strengthening the military. And I think we are going to see a very revved up kind of Pakistan offensive on Kashmir.
So where do you see things going in the short to medium term then? I mean, when or do we expect talks to resume again at some point of time? On what basis? Because now that we've taken such hard lines, we've created red lines over what we will talk about, what we won't talk about, preconditions, this, that and the other. There has to be a step back from both sides, which will presumably then not go down well with your domestic audience.
Well, yes. So I think now the next meeting that's coming is New York, right? I mean, the next chance of an encounter is in the New York General Assembly in September. Let's see if they meet. What's the point of meeting unless you know why you're meeting and unless you're taking the peace process forward? One is not interested in Nawaz Sharif coming for his oath taking, or this Narendra Modi going for some function there. We are interested in the two meeting, in substantive dialogue. And if they're not able to start that, then whether they meet or they don't meet is quite a matter of indifference for the people for the peace-loving people of both the countries. And by the way, there's a huge peace constituency which somehow gets ignored in the media, which is not picked up in these hysterical shows on television on either side. You know, as if, and the impression is given as if the people on both sides only want war. Whereas I would say that a huge majority wants peace. You know, it's only this handful of guys who control the media who want war. And because they're sitting in air-conditioned offices and they're sitting in air-conditioned rooms and they're not fighting.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's an excellent note to end this interview on. Thank you so much, Seema, for being with us today.
Thank you.